Hey guitarists, Will Metz here, or Guillaume Metz, my French name. Welcome to this new video, and in this video we're going to talk about something really exciting. We're going to talk about the ability to play what's in your head. A lot of the times when I interview students and I ask them what their main dream or goal is on the guitar, especially when it relates to improvisation or soloing, they'll say something along the lines of, I want to be able to play what's in my mind, or I want to be able to fully and freely express myself when soloing and to make more melodic solos as opposed to more noodly and scaly solos where your fingers are kind of going places but you don't really feel like you're actually delivering or playing what you would like to hear. Now I understand why this is a dream, because it's one of the best feelings in the world when you can reach that state. While reaching this ability and this level again typically is the result of years of practice and experience, I do think that there are some tips and exercises that I can give you today and that you can start practicing immediately to facilitate this process that will take you past the level of what I call an accurate player to an intentional player. And I'll explain those notions and what I mean by this in just a second. So again, stay until the end, because I know from experience that a lot of the concepts and exercises that I'm going to talk about here are mostly unknown, or at least very unclear to a lot of guitarists and aspiring guitarists. I'm going to give you 5 simple steps in the form of exercises or series of types of exercises that again you can start implementing. Even if you're still at the level of knowing a couple shapes of your pentatonic scales, you can already start doing those things. If you've already seen my videos and are returning to this channel, then thank you very much. Welcome back. If you're new to this channel and you don't know me, my name is Will Metz, and I'm originally from France, so my French name is Guillaume Metz, and I am a professional guitarist and music educator, and I focus on helping guitarists become better players and improvisers through a solid and rational understanding of music theory and fretboard navigation. I truly believe that every guitarist out there deserves good quality and well-explained information, and that it shouldn't be just exclusively for those that go to schools like Berkeley. Music education is something that's not rocket science, but there's a lot of confusing information out there, a lot of little gimmicky things that people tend to put on the social media. And I try to go on the other side of this and really take my time to explain the concepts. Because at a certain level, what you're lacking is not more licks, more tricks, more 5-minute videos or exercises. It is true understanding of the concepts. I've helped hundreds of guitarists all around the world reach their goals in that way using my methodology. And I'm making those videos here on YouTube available for free. So if you want to support, then the easiest way to do that is to hit the subscribe button, the thumbs up or thumbs down if you don't like the video, but preferably thumbs up, and leave a comment, of course. Let me know what you think. I always appreciate that and try to answer as many comments as I can. So first, let's talk about that concept of accuracy versus intentionality. So accuracy, to me, on the guitar, is the ability to properly navigate the fretboard and play with proper technique. So many guitarists will reach a level where they have decent technique, right? So they can learn and perform solos and sound very decent, right? They can deliver something that sounds pretty close sometimes to the original if it's something they're transcribing or a solo that they're learning from someone else. And even when they play, there's nothing really fundamentally wrong with their technique. Some will even go further and get to the point where they can navigate their fretboard pretty well. They can play scales in all the different shapes. They can play arpeggios pretty reliably, up and down without many mistakes. This is what I call accuracy. Why accurate? Because you basically get to a point where you're not really running the risk of playing anything that sounds quote-unquote bad or out. Because you know your shapes, say for example we're in G major, if you know the G major scale or G major pentatonic scale and you have good technique, and you know all of your shapes and can map them out pretty quickly, you're going to play the right notes, quote unquote. But because you're playing the right notes, the notes of the scale, doesn't necessarily mean that you're playing each note intentionally. It almost feels like you're playing, I say playing from your fingers, right? Your fingers are doing their own thing, repeating the things that you've been practicing, or the licks or scales that you've been repeating over and over again, but you feel like you're at the mercy of whatever your fingers decide to do, instead of feeling like you're actively deciding what you want your fingers to play, and in control of the sound of every note that you're going to deliver. So at that level, you're basically accurate, but you're not intentional. And that's what we're going to try to fix today. And if you want to know what an extreme degree of that intentionality can look like, look or listen to guitarists like George Benson. He can literally play and sing in unison, right, at the exact same time while he's improvising, right? He's doing this on the spot. A little similar to that little intro lick that I gave you, but not nearly at the level of George Benson. He can literally do whatever he wants. However dissonant or weird the lines he's playing, you can tell he's hearing what he's playing or playing what he's hearing. So how do you get there, and what are some of the tips that you can start implementing today that have helped many of my students? The first step, and this is not surprising, but I still need to repeat it, is you should thrive for accuracy if you don't already have it. So if you're struggling to just play your shapes of the pentatonic scales, you make mistakes everywhere, or again, you're trying to, and it's not just the pentatonic scales, right? Anything that you would like to implement in your solos, but you just simply don't know your way on the fretboard with those specific tools, then you should absolutely make it a goal to navigate your fretboard and to really cover it up with all the possible notes that you could play in a given context. Whatever key, whatever scale, mode, arpeggio we're talking about, you should increase your fretboard navigation skills and, of course, your technique and ability to perform them. Now, big caveat here, that doesn't mean that you should basically stop the video now and say, well, I'm not there yet, so whatever the other tips you're gonna give me, I guess I should still work on my accuracy, and maybe, in 5 years I'll be able to do the other exercises that you're about to give. That's not what I'm saying, because again, you can still develop your intentionality even with just one shape of the pentatonic scales, right? All the tips I'm going to give you still apply, because as we'll see, those abilities are pretty different. Again, you have people that play by ear really well, or basically exclusively out of what they hear in their mind and try to figure it out on the fretboard, and they don't really know their scales or shapes that well, and yet they're able to, with the little they know, make things that are pretty melodic and sound really intentional. And on the other hand, like I said, there's people that are extremely accurate, that shred all over the place, but when they try to make a solo, it always falls flat and it's not intentional at all. But what I am saying is that not knowing your scales, your chords, your modes, your arpeggios, etc., makes it incredibly harder and limiting to play intentionally. You want to be able to visualize the fretboard and see where those right notes are on your fretboard in any given context, and then use your ear or your intentionality to choose those notes that you want to play within those patterns, and even sometimes notes that are a little bit out of those patterns, right? You want to be able to grab those notes using your ear, but that doesn't mean that you should not build the proper frameworks of navigation. So let's say, for example, I'm in G major. I want to be able to play all my scales. Ideally also the full major scale. If I can do this, I am only one step closer to then being able to apply the exercises we're going to see, and then link those abilities to my inner voice, to my ear, so that I can not just play those scales, but also choose what I want to play within these patterns. And even if I want to play out, right, so play a note that's not in those patterns, your intentionality, well, let's call them what they are, the ear training exercises that we're going to do later will help you grab intentionally those notes that are out of the pattern, right? So you could add little chromaticisms like right, all those little chromatic things that again are not necessarily within those patterns, those little jazzy ornaments. You can still use your ear to predict their sound. But again, let's go back to the original advice of this step. Learn your scales, learn your modes, learn your arpeggios everywhere on the fretboard in all the different available shapes, and that will make everything else much easier. Now you might have a question, well, how do you do that? Well, there's a couple things you can do. The first thing you can do is watch all the other videos I've made on those topics. Go to my channel. I've made a ton of full-length videos explaining some of those concepts, so feel free to go there and watch them. Now, if you want to take this one step further, I'm going to do a tiny bit of shameless promotion over here. You can move forward if you don't want to listen to it. But if you want extra help doing this, if you want full guidance, personal coaching, 550, I think it's not actually closer to 600 videos of step-by-step explanations on everything regarding music theory and how to apply the concepts of music theory to better compose and improvise, but also to navigate your fretboard, with group calls that are very intimate, an awesome community of guitarists that are doing the same thing, then I recommend that you check out my Guitar Academy. There should be a link down there to apply if you're already interested, and if you'd like to learn more, there will also be a link to a free training where I explain the methodology that I use to help so many students all over the world reach their goals on the guitar. All right? That's it. Let's get back into it. So step 2, once you understand that you need to learn to navigate the fretboard, you need to find your voice. Now, that sounds a little bit woo-woo, but another way of saying it is develop your ability to sing. If you want to be able to play intentionally, you need to develop your voice. And before everyone says, well, I have a horrible voice, I don't know how to sing. Well, first of all, that might be part of the problem. Second of all, I'm not saying that you need to become an incredible singer or take singing lessons, although that could be a good idea. You don't have to even sing properly. You can whistle, you can hum, you can even kind of use the voice in your mind. We all have that ability to kind of sing melodies in our minds normally. But again, in my experience, it's very difficult to reach intentionality if you cannot sing notes on pitch to some extent. It doesn't have to sound beautiful with the perfect vibrato, but you should be able to sing notes and melodies on pitch. If you don't know where to start there, the first step is for you to learn how to match pitch. You basically hear a note and you need to train yourself to replicate that exact same note at the same pitch or an octave apart, octave below, an octave above. This is called match pitching again, and it is one of the first steps towards developing a good ability to sing, but also a good ear. So you can do that with your guitar. You take a note. That's the note, right? And play another one. Try to be as precise and as quick as possible, right? The sooner you can get that note, the better. For some people, it's very simple. It may look simple, but a lot of people actually struggle to do this. They'll sing like a fifth above, or they'll sing different intervals, and they won't even realize that they're not singing the actual note. That is a problem. If you want to be intentional on your instrument, you need to kind of develop that ability to hear what a note is and to be able to replicate it. Just think about it. Think about how that would hurt you if you can't even tell if you're singing a note or another note. Think about how that would hurt your ability to play musical and intentional ideas on your fretboard. What I would do there is start to listen to and replicate easy melodies, right? It can be tunes you know, or lines you hear on the radio, even little jingles with just a few notes, but you need to train this voice because again, the part of you that has musical and melodic ideas and wants to express itself is not your fingers, it's mostly your voice. It could be simple things like happy birthday. This way you Could be one of the few people at a birthday party that actually sings the right notes in happy birthday, right? That's kind of cool. This way everybody knows that you're a musician. So take little lines like this and try to replicate them. You can then move on to different intervals or scales, right? Singing proper scales, which again kind of requires an understanding of theory, the theory behind these notions, so that you know what you're actually trying to sing and you understand the logic behind this, and specifically the concept of intervals. It's going to be absolutely crucial if you want to be able to properly train your voice and your ear in that way. If you want extra help with this, there's a link to my video on intervals where I talk about the basics of ear training. And I recommend, even if you can, it's very inexpensive, but there's this awesome tool that I use when I decided to train my ear that I recommend to a lot of students. It's called Earmaster, and I'll put a link in the description with a discount code. I am affiliated, but I'm affiliated not because of the 50-cent commission I'm getting on every purchase that you would make, but mostly because it is a tool that I personally have used my whole life almost when I decided to become serious about the guitar, and that is extremely helpful. They will guide you towards this. You can hook up your microphone, play a note, and then you have to pitch the note with the microphone, and it'll detect if you're actually reaching that note. And it does everything else from, again, match pitching to singing or recognizing intervals, scales, modes, chords, everything. It's very kind of like step by step. So I really recommend it if you want some help in training your voice in that way. Step number 3. Step number 3 is sing what you play. So here is very simple. Anytime you are playing or practicing your scales, your technique, whatever it is, try to sing what you are playing. And here again, at the beginning, you're going to have to start really slow with relatively simple tools. The simplest tools, in my opinion, are going to be major and minor scales and major and minor triads. Why? Because those are tools that are very common and so that are quite intuitive. So again, you can take, for example, here's a G major scale. Right? So rather than just practicing it and going, right? Slow it down at the beginning and see if you can sing it at the same time. See, I'm not a great singer myself. And again, as you do this, it's going to take time at first. You can become quicker and quicker. And so even while you're practicing your technique and trying to go fast and shred, you can still sing and internalize those tools. So again, do it with major scales at the beginning, just over 1 octave, minor scales. You can then do it with, again, major and minor arpeggios. So major, minor arpeggios. Okay, so start there, and after a while, you can of course move on to more complicated tools. So you could move up to things like pentatonic scales. And yes, pentatonic scales are easier to play on the guitar, but they're actually harder to sing because there's more gaps in the scale. So you're jumping up bigger intervals. So again, major pentatonic scale. Minor pentatonic scale. You can then move on to some modes, like a Lydian mode. So if I play the major scale first, I'd have. In Lydian, again, you would raise the 4th. You can watch my video on modes here if you're confused. You can even, if you're practicing chromatic exercises, like this exercise that a lot of people use that is great for warm-ups, well, try to sing it. Go a little slower. It's very dissonant, very weird, but that's actually really good for your training. Again, anything that you play, strive to be able to sing those things at the same time while you're practicing. Go slow first, increase the speed, you'll get used to it. Another great exercise is to sing intervals. So again, just 2 different notes. And this exercise might require you to, again, to do a little bit of ear training and especially interval recognition and singing. And again, you can use Earmaster for this if you want. So for example, you play a note first and you mash pitch it. And then pick an interval or a spot on the fretboard, like put your finger here, and see if you can predict the sound of that second note compared to the first note. Boom, 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 boom. Right, so you're using basic interval shapes on your fretboard, which again are great to practice. It's what I call basic fretboard geometry. And you play a note and you're going towards another note that's a specific interval away, and you want to be able to predict the sound of that note. Again, think about how powerful that would be if you have ideas in your mind and you're trying to replicate them on your fretboard. At the beginning, it's painfully slow, but the more you do it, the better you'll get, and you'll surprise yourself one day. You'll be here, and you hear a note that you want to play, and you'll just catch that note directly. It's amazing. So again, take any note. What happens if I played this note? That's the 5th above, so what if I go up a half step? Again, there's a progression to this. Start with simpler intervals, but then try to really play all these interval shapes and try to predict the sound of that second note. It's a wonderful exercise. Again, all these exercises train your inner voice and connect that inner voice to your fretboard, which is ultimately what you want. Step number 4 is the reverse or the complementary exercise of the one before. Before we were singing what we play. And here, I want you to play what you sing. All right, so the idea here is, say for example, you're about to solo over a backing track. Well, rather than noodle over it, just let go of the guitar for a little bit and try to see if you can sing a little melody or idea. What would you come up with if you were a singer and you had to make a melody to the chord progression or the backing track that you're playing over? What do you hear over this track? This is again where the previous exercise will really help you, because a lot of the times we're not really familiar with the sound of all the scales, modes, arpeggios, etc. We can play them, we don't really internalize them. They're not part of our vocal or idea vocabulary. So you'll realize that things that you play are not things that would naturally come to mind if you were to sing. And here again, it could be because you need to fill up that inventory of ideas from your voice to get familiar with the sound of those different scales or tools, so that you would actually be able to sing them if you were singing a melody over a backing track. Again, essentially things that you play over a track when you're just noodling are not things you play because you're hearing them and you think they're going to actually sound good and add to the music, but they're simply because they're patterns that you have practiced and memorized. You're not in control, you're not intentional or active in that process. And you'll notice that again, what you sing over backing tracks is rarely going to be right? That's not something that's going to come naturally, typically vocally. Your ideas will tend to be much more vocal, much more simple, and melodic. In other words, they'll also be more hooky or relatable to the listener. And when you do this, try to actually replicate the natural inflections and nuances of your voice. Again, the voice is not like piano or even a fretboard where we're playing discrete notes. It's a much more continuous instrument, more similar to like a fretless instrument. When you sing, you'll always typically have a little bend towards a note, and then you'll glide towards another note. And the cool thing with the guitar is that you can actually replicate those things, right? On the guitar, we have slides, we have bends, we have all these great phrasing and articulation techniques that allow the guitar to sound very, very vocal. So try to really replicate those things. Okay, so here's an example in the style of Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder. So let the tune go a little bit. Make sure you get your ideas. you get the idea. I'm singing a little line, trying to replicate it. And then again, of course, you can embellish it. You can try to take it another octave, right? And then at some point, again, it's going to be a dance between some fills that you're doing from your fingers, but you're kind of latching on at least to that basic melody. And this can be kind of the bedrock of your improvisation, an idea that you can come back to and build upon. And that's extremely satisfying from the point of view of a listener. That's really how you build a good solo. If you listen to all the best solos, there's typically a few ideas, and those ideas are typically duplicated throughout or repeated throughout the solo with embellishments around those ideas. Now, last but not least here, try to be as precise as possible. So don't just noodle around until you finally find the right thing. Try to use the knowledge and all the things that you've done before to be as quick as possible and as precise as possible with finding that melody. An ideal situation is that you sing it and you kind of get it, boom, first try. That's why it's important again to start with simple things that you know you can kind of easily, basically transcribe. You're transcribing yourself in that case and replicate on the instrument. Anyways, sorry about the bad vocals. I'm trying to make a point here. Don't judge me. I'm already insecure about it. You don't need to put salt in the wound there. Okay. Step number 5, and this is the final step. Pick up songs and solos by ear. So instead of using tabs, if you can pick up a melody, again, it can start with simple melodies, parts of solos, or again, ultimately, whole solos or whole tunes by ear. This is one of the best ways to develop that connection. Every time you're doing this, every time you're taking a piece apart, and even if it takes a lot of time, it'll take you way longer than if you just read the tab, this will do miracles to this ability that we're trying to train over here. And all the other things apply, right? So the moment you practice the steps we saw before, and if you know your fretboard and all these other things, when you hear something, you'll be able to pick out kind of what key it's in, and so you'll know where the notes are likely to fall in the song. And then because you will have practice to sing what you play and play what you sing, you'll notice that you very quickly fall into the right notes. And this will show that you have reached a certain degree of mastery. It's also the best way to memorize tunes. It's the best way to play a tune, even if you haven't played it in a while and you know the melody in your mind. You can find that melody sometimes even on the spot. So you don't need to remember the numbers of the frets or things like that. You know the key, you know what the melody sounds like, you got it, right? And this is exactly how I learned a lot of the songs, or a lot of the, if you're playing jazz, a lot of the leads of jazz tune. Sometimes I don't remember them exactly, but I can sing them pretty close, and therefore I can play them, or hopefully play them at least close, right? So this is a huge ability, and it's really what differentiates a lot of beginner or early intermediate guitarists from more advanced guitarists. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Again, the ideas here are simple, but you'll see that if you really try to implement all of those tips and exercises, simple does not mean easy. In fact, it can be extremely difficult at first, but don't get discouraged. You will get there. Also remember, like I said, that you don't need to have mastered everything on your fretboard to start training that intentionality muscle. You can start doing it with things you already know, but like I said, you should learn and strive to learn everything else. Better technique, better knowledge of the fretboard, better knowledge of music theory, of rhythm, all of these things, which of course, like I said, I help people achieve in my Guitar Academy, the Metz Guitar Academy. If you're interested in joining us on this adventure It's not a small, gimmicky, cheap course. It's a full 12-month adventure, a full year training, a proper music education, but that was designed for people that still have a busy schedule or a life and that can't, say bye to the family and go to Berkeley for 3 years to learn all of this, right? Distilled only the information that you need, made it very simple to follow step by step, and you get, of course, personalized coaching, personalized mentorship, tons of group calls that are led by me, and a community where you can also share your experience, make friends, speak to other musicians that are doing the same exact thing that you are. If you're interested, again, you can click the link to apply and have a little chat with me to see if you qualify, or you can watch the free training video. Thanks again, everyone. Again, if you like this content, please like, please subscribe, all of those good things. Those really help kick in the algorithm and hopefully help more and more guitarists across the globe achieve their goals. Thanks a ton. Salut, bisous.